3, 2, 1. This is the Own the Block podcast with your host, Josh Derriman and Pierce Burton.
Welcome to the Own the Block podcast with your host, Josh Derriman and Pierce Burton. How we doing, Josh?
Doing really well.
Josh, let's jump right into it. November 1st was kind of a big day with the Fed. Jerome Powell, getting up there in front of the mic, making some remarks about how they're going to be pausing interest rates. Do you have any thoughts about that and where you see the market going forward?
Yeah, this is all very predictable. It's what we thought it would be. It was just a question of when this was going to happen, when they would get to the point of pause, and then start going back down. There were some pundits that said as early as January of this year, some thought later this year, and so this is well within the band of what we expected. And so they're going to pause. They may, pause for longer than we'd like, and then they should, start moving the rates back down.
When do you think, if you had your crystal ball out, when do you think they're going to drop interest rates, start dropping them?
My crystal ball's hazy, but I think mid-2024, we're going to see substantially better rates than we are now. Whether mortgage rates are going to be 5s or 6s, who knows? But I think mid-2024 we'll have a pretty good idea of what we're doing.
I think a large percentage of the population doesn't realize that the mortgage-backed security market actually predicts what the Fed's going to do. And so you will actually see easing of mortgage rates prior to the Fed lowering their interest rates. Don't you agree there?
Well, the markets try and predict the future. And so we usually get indicators, and there definitely have been indicators leading up to what Powell said, that they did believe that we were going to kind of stay in this pause. And if you look at the market, there's a lot of players and there's a lot of investment geared toward 2024, 2025 being substantially better rate environment than we are now.
So with everything following suit with the way things have been going, I don't really understand why suddenly it does seem like the last couple months and even going into this month, there's a lot of scared money out there when really nothing unpredictable has happened over the past 6 months. I think prior to that, I think a lot of us thought we were going to see easing of interest rates in the summer of 2023, but that became clear that wasn't going to occur around July. But you didn't really hear the inklings of scared money until the last couple of months. Why do you think that is?
That's a good question. What I always think of it is we lead our lives on the daily. And so even though we may look at it and we say, hey, 6 months from now or a year from now, we expect it this way, there's a panic that you can have on a daily basis, looking at where things are now versus where they're going to be. And I think I've definitely seen in the market, there's people that are panicking a little bit. But overall, what was expected is the path that's been going.
Well, yeah, we're emotional people, and I kind of see it with myself sometimes where I'll watch one video on YouTube or something, and that's the world's all going to shit, and then for a little bit I'll start to second guess myself and in my own investing strategies. And then, I kind of reevaluate that sort of thing and realize that's not going to happen.
One of my favorite things is to watch that Do Reborn, because I find it interesting. It's amusing. Most of the time they're completely wrong, but it's always good to hear the other side. But no matter the market, there's always going to be out there. If you're at the highs of the market or the market's running up, you're always going to have some guy out there or some series of people that are telling you it's about to fall. And so it's easier to listen to when the market has been going down or there's oil in the market. And so there's a lot of people out there doing that right now.
Based on where the market's headed and the trajectory that we think we're going, can you see any type of Armageddon that could potentially cause something to go wrong against our predictions?
I mean, there's so many different things that can go wrong. We could elect another Democratic president. We can go to war. There's a lot of geopolitical things that are going on that can potentially create problems. The market, as we call it, is such a dynamic thing, and there's so many things that can cause it to go one way or the other, or offset various things. It's hard to say. But China, for example, is going to be a big thing over the next couple of years. They seem to be going through some pretty heavy struggles, which should continue. We're starting to see Europe fall apart a little bit. They're struggling. Israel, Palestine, Ukraine, Russia. Things are starting to spark off, and so there's all kinds of interesting things out there that are going on that you would think might be bad for the U.S. market, but it might actually be good depending on how those things go.
Well, I think one thing that people don't realize is all the markets are so tied together. I just went to the UK, went to Scotland, and met this random neurologist at the train station with my buddy, and we went over to his house, and the guy started talking about the market there and the real estate market, everything, because I told him that was my business, and the similarities to what have gone on there to the U.S. are so similar. But the difference is we're doing a better job of controlling inflation than the rest of the world, especially with us being so tied to Europe and those wars going on. I can see all of those things factoring negatively for them and being positive for our market, with people looking in Europe for a safe haven to invest.
A lot of times we look at our own house in the United States, and we look at it and we aren't happy. There's all kinds of issues that we have within the United States, debt, inflation. We could go on forever. But when you look at it against other countries, other regions, we're actually the prettiest ugly girl at the dance. And so if things start to go the wrong way in the world, the money will flow into the United States for safe haven. I don't really seeing it flowing into China. China's not really set up for that right now. There'll be some money that would flow into European countries and yada yada. But the United States has been that beacon for many, many decades, and it will continue.
Yeah, and back to the housing market, I feel like I start to hear like people talking about the crash around this time of year every single year. And the truth is the housing market just slows down in November, December, January, and then end of January, we see it pick up. And every year I've been in the mortgage business, it's been this way. And so, yeah.
I've been doing this for 20 years. Every year, no matter what, I get people to tell me the sky is falling, rates, or values are going to drop dramatically. It's coming. And really only one time that happened. And, it's just not how it really works. And I always encourage people not to think that way. It's damaging. I was thinking about it about 9 months ago, maybe a year ago. We had a sit down and we talked about where we thought the market was going. Do you remember that?
No. What do we say?
Do you remember? Well, we were given our predictions, and I thought that there would be, and I could be totally making this up, but I thought that there would be a reduction in values in certain segments of the U.S., but overall not too bad. And you had a different viewpoint. I don't want to state what your viewpoint was. You would know it better than me. But it would be interesting to go back and look at that.
Well, I do know that, and I remember this specifically. I'm in a group chat with some realtors in California with some of my buddies I went to high school with. And it's 3 realtors and me. They call me the officer in that chat. And they said, "Officer, what do you think the market's going to do in 2024 or 2023?" And I said, "Well, there in California, I think things are going to go down probably 5%. And then in Mississippi, the main place that I invest because I went to school there, I said I could see the market going up between 10 and 20% over 2023. And they said, "Oh, that's convenient for you. Our market's going to go down and yours is going to go up." And I go, "No, I've looked at the data, and if rates go up to 7%, there, your median income, their debt to income ratio just based on their housing expense is going to be about 51%. I remember doing the calculation and everything. And in Mississippi, it was 30%. And so what I said was there's more room for growth in Mississippi for people to become house poor like they are in California than in California. Your median and rates have gone even higher than that 7% threshold. And so your median income does not match the median home price. And that's an issue.
Yeah, living out in California, I definitely see it. So many people are stretched to meet their housing payment. And in a lot of states, Mississippi, it's just wildly more affordable. And so, yes, the income is less, but overall the housing expense is way, way less. And so I was thinking the other day, and it's hard to predict in an area that you're not familiar with, and I'm not familiar with Florida, but Florida had such a run up. It's been kicking around in my brain that they might see a correction. And Florida is somewhat notorious in real estate. And so it wouldn't surprise me to see a correction in Florida, but we'll see.
So you're looking pretty ripped there. What's this sweatshirt you got on?
Actually, it says "Rip like Jesus." It's my favorite sweatshirt.
Let's see. Let me see the whole thing. That's awesome.
So you left Florida, last year?
No, in March.
Was it March? Jesus. You're happy with that decision? Do you feel like you sold at a good time?
Yeah. Well, I did look at the Zillow on it, and it does say my property is worth about, I think, $150K or something more than I sold it for. But I think I got out at the right time. You know, I took those funds, reinvested them in other properties that, you know, I was able to buy it at a deep discount. You know, bought my condo there for $590 and sold for $915, owning it for 2 years. And my HOA had gone up to $2,700 a month. I believe it was $2,700.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that. It's an insane amount. So what do you feel like, so you living in Miami for that period of time, how do you feel like the market is there? Do you think there's going to be any adjustments? Do you think it's going to continue?
I think it'll continue. I think, you know, there's so many people there buying with cash. There's also what Florida, especially South Florida, what South Florida didn't have before, which is sort of a hedge against inflation, is cryptocurrency. And it's really the cryptocurrency there in Dubai, capital of the world. I mean, do you remember the guy who we were doing a loan for? And he had like $25 million in Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin crashed, and it was at like we did the math and it would be like $5 million, and we never heard from him again.
I do remember that.
He was looking to buy like an $8 million condo from some reggaeton artist there.
Yeah, I do remember that.
He was telling me that the building, he's like, this building's awesome. Matthew McConaughey has a condo there. Matt Damon has a condo there. I was like, cool, man.
Might me over.
Yeah. So
what's your feeling about crypto?
I think, a lot of people take the buy and hold approach to crypto. I think if you put your money in when it's low, it seems to always go up, and then just take your money out as soon as you get to 50%, and then wait till it drops again back to maybe 125% of where you bought before. I had that Dogecoin. I had a bunch of Dogecoin, and I bought it like 5 years ago, and this is when I didn't really have much money. I think I put, I don't know, $5,000 in it, and I doubled my money and got out. But that Dogecoin at Dogecoin's height would have been worth like, I don't know, $400,000 or something like that. had a 5G. So it's a little bit of a regret, but I mean, it's just so volatile, right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that swear by it.
Yeah, it's not my gig for a couple of reasons. One is I don't believe in it. I think it'll get to the point where it'll mature, and you'll see governments basically outlaw it, and the government will push its own variation of it. And then the other one is that you see a lot of stuff where people get it stolen. So you get hacked, and your life savings is gone. And it's not like you can go to B of A and say, "Hey, man, I want my money back." You're done. Or you have a something where you have it stored, and then you just lose it. And so you could throw it in the garbage and off it goes, or you lose your password or whatever. Like, I'd probably be the guy that lost his password.
I saw a video or something on this. There was some kid in like the UK or something, and he was living with his mom, but he had like a few $1 million on Bitcoin, and it was all saved on a like, what do you call those sticks you put in there? I can't think of it right now. I was going to say floppy disk, but that's not right.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Anyway, his mom was cleaning up around the house and didn't know that he had this, and then Bitcoin shot up right around the same time and threw it away. And he was trying to like petition the local government to be able to go search the entire landfill for this thing, because it was like $5 billion or something like that.
Really?
But exactly what you said, it can get stolen or lost or taken, and it's just it's still in the infancy stages. I think if things get more regulated with it, it actually be a better thing for that, but it may never.
I mean, we could go super in depth about it. It's not the most interesting topic to me, but I know a lot of people that really, really find it interesting. I just don't. Anytime you're going to compete with a government for control over money, you're going to lose. They're going to come in and they're going to curb stomp you. And I think if it continues, that's what's going to happen. Is that the U.S. government will come in, the EU will come in, and they'll start issuing their own stuff and outlaw all the variations of crypto that are out there. Because at the end of the day, that's what the government wants to do. They want to control you, and you can look at it positive or negative, but yeah, I think it's in its infancy, and then as it starts to mature more, it'll go bye-bye. And if you wanted to pay me in Bitcoin, I'd tell you to go fuck yourself. Like yeah, just the average person, like, what am I going to do with Bitcoin or Dogecoin or all these variations? Like, I don't need the headache.
There's another story online about it where this guy had the first Bitcoin transaction of all time, and it was Domino's Pizza, and he traded like 20 Bitcoin for a Domino's Pizza. We should find the video.
Jesus.
But the Bitcoin was worth $1 at that point or some shit. Like he traded, yeah, it's nuts.
Sure.
But you probably get rid.
Ouch.
I mean, he probably would have gotten rid of it before then anyway. Who knew it was going to go up this high? What types of things? Me and you don't. I tell you what I'm investing in. Where are you putting your money right now? You never tell me that.
So, well, I know my wife does all kinds of stuff that I don't even want to know, but mostly REITs, and we've got some stuff parked in some like money markets and things like that. I feel like I feel like we're getting to a point where there's going to be some opportunities. And you and I have talked about it. I may dip my toe back into buying some properties because I've been out of the game for a while. And so, but I think there'll be some opportunities for sure.
Yeah, you're making that move to South Carolina. You thinking of investing over there? Like, because you want to be local to the properties, right? Or do you care?
Yeah, local to the properties. California is so expensive, and it's hard for things to cash flow. There is you can say there's a play for equity increase, but I think that's a challenge, especially with where rates are where they are, with the political climate, with where taxes are in California. And there's a lot of blue states that are that way, where it's very challenging to live in those states, and so to invest in those states, it's equally as challenging.
One thing that I hadn't asked you that I've been meaning to ask you that got brought up, I was speaking to a local banker on, I was using him for a refi on a multifamily property, right? And we were talking about the market a little bit. And one thing I hadn't thought about was, obviously in the commercial sector, those loans mature, right? However, the loans, typically you think that everyone's locked into a 30-year fixed right now on primary residence. But these local banks in a lot of areas have people on like 530 loans, right? And I said, those people didn't refinance in 2020 or 2021, 2023. He goes, no, we got a lot coming up. I said, why didn't they refinance? He goes, people don't even think about it. People don't look at it sometimes. And so he goes, we got a lot of those loans maturing here in the next year. So it's going to be really interesting because they're locked in at, probably in the 4s, and they're going to be going up to the 8s because most of these local banks with those types of loans function purely off of what the Fed funds rate is.
Yeah, I was talking yesterday to a gentleman, I think he was in West Virginia, and we were talking about this exact thing. He owned 20, 25 properties, and they were almost all 5/1 ARMs from a local bank. And he was talking about how he's about 2 years left on his 4% rate across his properties, and the maturities are different depending on the property. But he said on average it was 2 more years, and he was like, then my 4% is going to jump up massively. And you're exactly right. There's a lot of people, they don't think about that. But the problem with the 5/1 ARM is that around year 2 or 3, you start to get real nervous. And so you don't really get you get a 5-year fix, but you try and get out of that sooner than the 5 years. That's what people tend to do. And so it only gives you a little bit of respite of those maybe 2, maybe 3 years. And you're right, those local banks, the way they get their funds are through deposits. And so if you go down to a bank right now, you get a CD for 6 months or a year, and they're paying over 5. So it costs them 5 to get those funds. What are they going to lend them out at? 7, 8%.
Yeah. It on I have some loans with some local banks, and my soonest maturity is at the end of 26. And so I feel like I'm in a pretty good spot where I can refinance those, because I believe that we're going to see rates in the 5s or 4s, and it may be worth it on some of those local bank loans that I have at 3.99, 4.15 to refinance them even to a 5% rate if I'm moving to a 30-year fixed or something like that. So something I think about all the time.
From your perspective, so the cost of money is the cost of money, and so what it is now is somewhat irrelevant. But are you seeing inflation in rents in Mississippi? So in 2025, 26, when you start to see your loans mature and you need to move into higher cost rates, do you anticipate that your rents on those properties are also going to go up?
Yeah, so rents have been going up pretty steadily. I think we've seen a little bit of pause with that in the last 5 or 6 months, where we're not able to increase some of the rents. But the other thing is with these local bank loans, I'm on 20-year amortizations on most of the stuff that I have. And so the pay down, I may not be able to get cash out come that 5-year mark, but that pay down is going to get me down to a point when I'm refinancing that payment's probably going to look relatively the same unless we just see rates just jump like crazy.
Yeah, so it offsets.
Yeah. So you just move that amortization back.
So so can we flip to a different topic? You up for that?
Yeah. Go ahead and switch
or you
gears.
Want to keep on this? So I was looking at this article last night, and it was how the State Department and Homeland Security were censoring social media. Did you read that article?
No. Give me a little lowdown.
So basically what they were doing is they were in conjunction with Stanford University. What they were doing is during the 2020 election cycle, and after, from what it looks like, they were basically determining posts, whether they were appropriate or not, and then creating recommendations to the social media sites to either take them down or to create less views of those posts. And so it was interesting because it's a little, it's been a long time since I read the books, but 1984 kind of Animal Farm sort of thing where we actually have a government that is trying to decide what it's okay for us to consume as far as information. And something as basic as political opinions, they're trying to essentially edit what we see.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's been suspected for quite some time now. And, but it's interesting when those reports come out, it's still kind of swept under the rug, right? And people seem to be relatively okay with it in the general population, which we shouldn't be. I mean, we should be fighting for that.
it's a little bit like we're boiled frogs, because I remember during that time period, all of this stuff was coming up and it was conspiratorial, right? And then slowly this stuff starts coming out, and now it's in black and white. There really is no question, but it's, 3-4 years later, and it's like, oh, well, that was back then. That was, a whole different election cycle. Well, if you take a step back and you go, that's not what our government is supposed to be doing. Like, that's very much against the tenets of why this country was founded. And yet this is where we are.
Yeah, and your boy Elon Musk released a lot of that different type of stuff on the Twitter files too, when he bought Twitter. Did you see that, by the way, on the Rogan podcast? Did you watch that whole thing?
I watched about 2/3 of it. I've always said that I like Elon Musk. He cracks me up. If I could grow up and be anybody I wanted to, I'd be Elon Musk. He's just funny as shit. If I was a billionaire, I don't know that I could do any better than what I see him do. Like, it's just crazy. He's an alien.
Grow up. Aren't you guys like the same age? Or he might be in his 50s. How old is Elon?
He's a little older than me. Oh, fuck if I know. I'm going to look this up.
How old is Elon?
Let's see here. 52.
Okay. You're what, 46 now? Or 45?
Yeah, he's got 6 years on me. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, must be 46. So anyway, cracks me up. He's funny as shit. He doesn't give a shit. It cracks me up. Like, he's there's some elements of Donald Trump to him, but he's just wildly more intelligent.
So I was actually watching a YouTube video on Elon Musk's whole recently rise to owning X now, and they were talking about how him and Trump basically were like the same person on as far as Twitter users, and how they used it for their own gain and shock and awe and all that different type of thing. I think Elon Musk is a little more funny and less abrasive, but there was that 60 Minutes interview too where he was like, Twitter's a war zone.
I see that there is, between Trump and Elon, there's definitely some commonalities. Just Elon Musk is, I would say, far more intelligent than Trump.
You think?
And he actually knows how to speak to people and not sound like an asshole.
One thing that I've never quite understood, and it kind of speaks to the Donald Trump thing, and it ties back into real estate, is, he's got all these pending lawsuits about fraud of what his properties are worth, and they valued Mar-a-Lago at $19 million, and he's saying could be worth $1 billion. How is tax of assessed value determined? I've never really looked into that. Do you know?
It's highly dependent on the state, and so and it can be crazy confusing depending on the state. So I'm not ever tend to know how they do it in Florida, but some states, they do it based off of market value, and so every year they will establish what the market value is, and then that's the tax assessment. Some states, like California, they will establish your base rate when you purchase a house, and then they can add a certain percentage every year. You can go up or down. And then others do just wild variations, and so it's highly, highly dependent. But in general, your tax assessed value almost never has anything to do with the actual market value of your house, with a couple of exceptions.
100%. And so in Mississippi, property taxes are home sales. It's a non-disclosure state. And we've talked about this before, where they don't disclose what the home sold for. So the tax assessor will actually send you a letter that you're supposed to fill out, but you don't have to. It says it's our job to send this to you for you to fill out, but there's no obligation for you to fill out. You don't have to, right? And so it asks you what you paid for the property, and then if you have a rental property, they charge you for personal property at tax in the property. So I've actually purchased a property where I inherited a personal property tax on like washing machines and stoves and refrigerators, because the previous owner filled out that form like an idiot, and so I'm getting taxed on that stuff, that personal property that's inside the property, because this guy filled that out.
So they will tax you on personal property in Mississippi.
Yeah, for property taxes.
So not like a hot tub outside, but like a refrigerator?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wild.
Only if it's a rental property, though. I believe. I haven't owned a primary residence in Mississippi, but yeah, that's part of their property taxes. But you have to fill out this stupid form that you're not obligated to fill out. It's for the tax assessor, but I probably have one laying around here. I could read it to you or scan it to you, and you can see. But it clearly says that you don't have to fill out the form. So that you don't have to fill out the form, but they word it in a way that makes it seem like you do have to fill out the form, but you don't have to.
So it's like a voluntary tax.
Yeah, but exactly. But the way they word it, it does sound like that you should fill it out. But they do that on purpose to get people to fill it out and be able to raise the tax basis on a property.
So you mentioned something that's interesting to me, and I don't follow it religiously, but we're definitely seeing a politicization of the judiciary, and an example is not just Trump, but he's a good example where the judiciary is being used for political means, and you can even see how the actual judges themselves are coming up with it. And it's always been a little bit hidden, but it's becoming more and more prevalent, and it's unfortunate. And so you're just seeing stuff. You're seeing judges come out with stuff where it's just clearly based off of the political leanings of the judge and not based off of law. And it's unfortunate, and I hope it gets tamped down. But we're seeing a lot more of it. And an example that you brought up was Mar-a-Lago, and that whatever it was, $19 million. And that's a ridiculous number, obviously. I don't think anybody in Florida, could realistically agree with
condos.
that. Yeah.
There's condos in West Palm.
Yeah, now you and I've
$19
seen
million.
stuff that's not remotely as nice. It's way, way more. And so it's silliness, and it's unfortunate. But it brings me to the other thing, is that it's somewhat laughable that anybody could present themselves to some large bank, Chase or Deutsche Bank or whatever, and misrepresent the value of a property. So if you had a big 80-story sky rise, and you said, "Hey, Chase, this thing's worth $800 million." Chase doesn't go, "Already, sounds good to me." Like they're just like, what, whatever.
No.
And they do their own due diligence, like we do on our stuff. Like, some client can tell us, "Hey, my house is worth $2 million," and it's like, cool story. Like, it's information, but it's not. That information doesn't create anything for us. We still go and verify it through third-party means. And so this whole thing that he was fraudulently doing things with these banks. Like, these banks are not stupid. Like, they know the business, they know how to figure this stuff out, and so it's a funny political world that we live in right now.
No, and that's not fraud to assume the value of your property. Like, it's not a real number, right? Like, I could, like, let's say loan application said, what's your hair color, right? And you could call my hair brown, but I call it black. It's a assumption of what the hair color is. It's crazy.
Well, there is a definition of fraud, and it's an intent thing. It's the intent to deceive, and so, and then it's also followed up with, was the person that you were intending to deceive, did they actually believe it? And so if we had some client, they said, hey, my house is worth $2 million, and we send it to a lender, and they go, clearly this is not. We got an appraisal and it's $500,000. Does that mean that the guy committed fraud? No. He thought his house was worth more than it was, and the failure to do due diligence on the bank's part doesn't make it fraud. It's just silly.
Well, one place that I do know a lot of fraud goes on is Tinder.
That's your specialty. I aged out of that a long time ago. Never even.
There's
went
a
on
lot
the
of
website.
intent. There's a lot of intent to deceive on photos on those websites or those apps.
I would suspect. We're gonna have to do a podcast on the moon landing. I've been thinking about this more and more. It's bullshit. We're gonna have to do an hour talking about it.
It has to be bullshit. Have we
100%.
ever? Yeah, I think it's bullshit too. Yeah,
I think we could have sent stuff to the moon. Inanimate objects, but I don't think there's any way in hell that we actually sent people to the moon.
How many times were we supposed to have sent people? And no other country's done it. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't think there's been any other country that's done it. Other countries have sent things, but what is it, like 8 times or something like that? Maybe 10 times. But just a lack of data, the weird things that NASA has done over the years, the way that they've just outright lied about stuff for no clear reason. It's just, the inability to go back. Like, the idea is that we lost the technology. Like, how silly is that? That's like,
well, that's happened
150
before.
years from now
before.
saying, oh, what technology would we have lost?
Well, we've lost different writings. We don't know how they built the pyramids. There's different things like that.
Well, that's a question of how did this get built specifically? Like, how did they move these things here? This isn't, how could they we don't know how you can put those stones there. Like, we would be able to put those stones there. So we can fire off rockets, but we can't figure out how to fire off rockets like we did in the 50s.
Yeah, I don't think it's a long enough time difference, right? Like, for example, like they say work in ancient Egypt was actually better and then it got worse. But, that's over thousands of years. We're talking a 40, 50-year period where no documentation of anything has been lost. SpaceX can't go to the moon right now?
Well, I don't know. We'd have to ask Elon. But can you imagine? So fast forward 60 years from now, we're all driving around in Teslas, and then somebody goes, "Hey, we should make another internal combustion engine car," and then everybody throws up their hands and are like, "Can't do it. That technology's been lost to time." Of course you can.
Yeah.
So, but that's essentially what they did. Yeah, we can get you out to space, but have no idea how to get through the radiation belt to get to the moon. Like, that's crazy technology. It's, if they could figure out the physics to do it, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, they can certainly do it today, unless we have it wet.
You want to wrap this up?
Yeah.
Thank you for watching the Own the Block podcast. These are your hosts, Pierce Burton and Josh Derriman. Until next time.